Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping into a really critical skill for any analyst working in the ESG space, and that's data normalization. It's all about how you take raw numbers and turn them into insights you can actually compare and use. We're going to break down exactly how to do it right, using the fundamentals of sustainability accounting, or FSA Level 2 study guide, as our foundation.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into why looking at raw data can sometimes trick you. Then, we'll figure out when you should normalize. After that, we'll get into the art of picking the perfect metric, and then we'll apply all of that to a real comparative analysis. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see how this gets us to much deeper insights.
All right, let's kick things off with a huge challenge in ESG analysis. You see, without any context, raw data isn't just kind of useless, it can be downright misleading. It can actually point you to a conclusion that's the complete opposite of what's really happening. So picture this. You're reading a company's sustainability report, and you see a big, bold number like this one, a 50% jump in water usage. Your first thought is probably, whoa, that's not good. Is the company getting wasteful? Is their efficiency tanking?
Here's the absolute data. Year 1, the company uses 20,000 cubic meters of water. Year 2, it shoots up to 30,000. On its own, that 50% increase looks pretty bad, right? It seems like a big step in the wrong direction. But the real question is this number telling us the whole story?
Well, hold on. Look what happens when we add just one more piece to the puzzle, how much stuff they actually made. In year 1, they produced 500,000 cases. In year 2, the company grew a lot and they produced 750,000 cases. Now, if you do the math, water usage divided by production, you find out they used 40 cubic meters of water per case in both years. Their efficiency didn't get worse at all. It stayed perfectly constant while the business was booming.
And that example right there is the perfect illustration of why we need normalization. It's the tool that gives us that crucial context. So the key then becomes knowing exactly when to use it, and just as importantly, when to let the raw numbers speak for themselves. So before we go any further, let's just make sure we're on the same page. When we say normalization, we're talking about adjusting data to create a level playing field. We're trying to control for things like a company's size, its revenue, or its production output so we can finally make fair apples-to-apples comparisons.
So how do you decide if you actually need to normalize? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Just ask yourself these 3 simple questions. First, is the data you're looking at already a ratio or a percentage? Like an injury rate. If it is, congrats, it's already normalized. Second, are the absolute numbers useful all by themselves? Maybe because you're comparing them to a hard legal limit. And third, is there a huge range of performance across the companies you're looking at? If so, normalization can really help make sense of the noise.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. You stick with absolute data when you have a firm benchmark, like an emissions cap, or when the perfect score is 0. A product recall is a failure, period. It doesn't matter how big the company is. On the other hand, normalized data is absolutely essential when you're comparing companies of different sizes or when you're tracking one company's efficiency over time, just like we saw with that water usage example. Okay, so you've decided to normalize. Great. Now you're facing what is maybe the most important question of all. What do you normalize by? This choice isn't just technical. It's part science, part art, and it's going to have a huge impact on your final analysis. The good news is you have a powerful toolkit here. Financial statements are a great source for metrics like revenue or EBITDA. For more tailored insights, the Sustainable Accounting Standards Board, or SASB, gives you industry-specific metrics. And of course, other operational data can be super relevant too. The 5 SASB sustainability dimensions actually give us some fantastic rules of thumb. For environmental stuff like emissions, it's often best to normalize by production or revenue. For social capital issues like product safety, you want to tie it to output. Think recalls per million cars sold. Human capital, that's all about people, so normalizing by the number of employees usually makes the most sense. For business models, you can tie it to operational scale. And for leadership, things like big fines can be put into context by looking at them against revenue. Let's make this real with another quick example. Here's Company A, a pulp and paper company. Their gross Scope 1 emissions are 105,000 metric tons. That's way higher than the industry average of 75,000. So your first take might be, wow, Company A is a laggard. They're polluting more than their peers. But watch this. When we normalize, the story totally flips. In this business, emissions are tied to production, and revenue is a pretty good proxy for that. When we look at how much revenue they generate for every ton of CO2 they emit, Company A is a rock star. They make almost $50,000 per ton, more than double the industry average. They're not a laggard at all. They're actually a leader in economic efficiency. The raw data told one story, but the normalized data, that revealed the truth.
So now we've got the why and the how. So let's actually apply this stuff to the two most common types of ESG analysis. Looking at a company against its own history to see if it's getting better, and comparing it to its competitors to see where it stands in the market.
First, let's look at comparing a company to its past self. Grocer A cut its food waste from 200,000 tons down to 170,000 tons. On the surface, that looks great, but did their efficiency actually get better? Well, during that same time, they also closed a few stores. By normalizing the waste per store, we can see that yes, this is a real improvement. Waste per store dropped by about 13%. So normalization confirmed the positive trend.
Now let's do a peer-to-peer analysis. We'll compare Grocer A to its rival, Grocer B, on refrigerant emissions, which is a big deal for grocers. If we normalize by the number of stores they each have, Grocer A looks like the clear leader, with lower emissions per store.
But hang on, is number of stores the best metric? What if Grocer B just happens to have much larger superstores? A more precise metric might be their total retail area. And when we rerun the numbers using square meters, the conclusion completely flips. Grocer B is actually the more efficient company, with way lower emissions per square meter. And this is so important. Your choice of normalization factor is not just some small technical detail. It's a fundamental decision that literally shapes the story you're going to tell. Choosing the most relevant metric is absolutely critical.
So let's bring this all home. The goal of all this isn't to just play with numbers or make them look better. It's about revealing the truth that's hiding inside them. Okay, so what are the key takeaways here? First, raw data by itself is often not enough. Second, normalization is what creates that level playing field by accounting for scale. Third, the metric you choose to normalize by, whether it's revenue or production or employees, is a huge context-dependent decision. And finally, when you do it right, this whole process is what turns simple data points into powerful, actionable intelligence about how a company is really doing.
You know, the FSA Level 2 study guide itself really says it best. Normalization is the foundational tool that lets you effectively compare a company against its past, its peers, and its goals. It's really what makes strategic ESG analysis possible in the first place. And that leaves us with the next big question, doesn't it? Once you've used normalization to get an accurate read on a company's operational performance, how do you actually translate that into dollars and cents? How does better water efficiency connect to the company's value? That's the bridge from performance to valuation, and it's a topic for another explainer. Thanks for watching.